Sabanani. I hope you are having a good day. In previous lessons, we have studied how living organisms are grouped, the characteristics of living organisms, microorganisms, and the characteristics of plants. You will remember that there are 5 kingdoms of living organisms. These are the Monera, Protista, Mycota, Plantae and Animalia. In this video, we will talk about the different groups that make up the plant kingdom. Unlike other kingdoms of living organisms, the plant kingdom is divided into divisions, not phyla. This hierarchy only shows some of the divisions of the plant kingdom. There are many others that you will learn about in higher grades. The classification of the plant kingdom begins with non-vascular and vascular plants. These groups are divided into non-seed-bearing and seed-bearing plants. The only non-vascular plants we will discuss is the division Algae. The vascular plants include the division Pteridophyta, division Gymnospermae, and division Angiospermae. We will begin with division Algae. The algae are a large group of plants that usually live in sea or freshwater habitats. The algae are non-vascular and non-seed-bearing plants. The algae may be grouped as green, red or brown seaweed. Many of the algae are unicellular, but there are multicellular forms too. Unicellular examples of algae are the Chlamydomonas, Spargyra and Volvox. The kelp seaweed is a very large multicellular brown seaweed. The algae are important in the ecosystem because they are often the first stage in food webs. Division Pteridophyta. These plants include all the ferns. The ferns are vascular plants, but they reproduce by means of spores. Ferns live in habitats near water. The word pterido means feather-like. If you look at the frond of a fern, it looks like a feather. The word phyta means plant. So the Pteridophyta are all the feather-like plants. There are many different kinds of fern plants. Ferns have been very important in the formation of coal, which, as you know, is a fossil fuel. Division Gymnospermae. The gymnosperms are vascular and seed-bearing plants. The word gymo means naked or unprotected. The word sperm means seed. Therefore, the gymnosperms have naked or unprotected seeds. In other words, the seeds are not protected by a fruit. There are many kinds of gymnosperm plants. Some of them are shown here. The pine tree is a good example of a gymnosperm plant. All gymnosperm plants reproduce using seeds that are formed in a cone. There is a male and female cone. The male cone is small, fragile and found towards the lower branches of the tree. The female cone is large, strong and green. The surface of the female cone is sticky. The male cone produces pollen. The pollen looks like a yellow powder. The pollen contains the male sperm cells. The pollen is dispersed by the wind. The pollen sticks to the sticky female cone. The pollen enters the female cone. The sperm cells in the pollen unite with the egg cells in the female cone, and a seed begins to form. After pollination, the function of the male cones has ended, and the male cones fall off of the tree. However, the seeds are developing in the female cone. The development of the seeds takes 2 to 3 years. In this time the female cone becomes woody and dry. The scales of the female cones open up. On each scale there are seeds. The seeds are unprotected because they are not surrounded by a fruit. The seeds have wings. The seed is dispersed by the wind. If the seed falls on good soil, it will germinate, and a new pine tree will grow. Division Angiospermae. The angiosperm plants are the most successful group of plants. They are the only flowering plants, and reproduce with seeds that are protected by a fruit. There are two groups of angiosperm plants. These are the Monocotyledonnae and the Dicotyledonnae. Here are some examples of these plants. What are the cotyledons? The cotyledons are found in the seed. Since a germinating seed cannot photosynthesize, the cotyledon provides nourishment for the seed as it germinates. The maize seed is a good example of a monocotyledon seed. The bean seed is a good example of a dicotyledon seed. If you soaked a bean seed in water, you will easily split the seed into two halves. These are the cotyledons of the bean seed. Therefore, dicotyledon plants have two cotyledons in the seed. You would not be able to split a maize seed into two parts because it only has one cotyledon. There are even more differences in monocotyledon and dicotyledon plants. We know that monocotyledon plants have one cotyledon and dicotyledon plants have two cotyledons. The floral parts of monocotyledon plants are always in groups of threes. The floral parts of dicotyledon plants are in groups of fours or fives. The leaves of monocotyledon plants have parallel veins and form a sheath around the stem. Dicotyledon leaves always have net veins and are attached to the stem with a stalk. Finally, monocotyledon plants have a fibrous root system, whereas the dicotyledon plants have a tap root system. That was a lot of explaining and a lot of information. Let us summarize what we have discussed. The plant kingdom is divided into divisions. Plants can be non-vascular or vascular. Plants can be non-seed-bearing or seed-bearing. Division algae are plants that live in wet habitats. Algae may be unicellular or multicellular. Division Pteridophyta includes all the ferns. Ferns were important in the formation of coal. Division Gymnospermae reproduce by means of seeds that are unprotected by a fruit. The seeds of gymnosperms develop inside a cone. Gymnosperm plants have male and female cones. Division Angiospermae are all the flowering plants. The angiosperms reproduce by means of seeds that are protected by a fruit. The Monocotyledonnae and Dicotyledonnae are the two groups of angiosperm plants. Monocotyledons have one cotyledon in the seed, whilst dicotyledons have two cotyledons in the seed. Other differences between monocots and dicots appear in the flowers, leaves and roots.
Ha 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 ha.